All yours, Dylan.
Right, and we more or less respected the order. So let's see. So we talked a lot about the cloud and AI and the effect it has on data management. So now we are going to try to reflect on that, share experience and scars or whatever we are willing to share. So if I go through the panel, I'm thrilled to have a EDM Council here. So it's 4 years of work on our side to build this relationship and lots of time spent with Microsoft as well. But the panel, I'm also really happy because we have a lot of diversity in the panel. So we have the banks. The banks have been leading the way, we discussed. So Juha will tell us a little bit more. If you want to find the ones that were doing that 10 years ago, that's the banks, right? So they have what I used to say is 10 years lead. Maybe it's 8, but anyway, probably 10 years lead. But then what is very interesting is that it's not just the banks nowadays. So I think I was discussing with you, Andrew. So you're the representative and the advocate of the EDM Council, and most of you will tell us more about that, but this is quite interesting and refreshing to have the perspective, the global perspective, I would say, and regional perspective, is that it's not just the banks. Most members are non-financial members, and I was, or 55,
you could say.
Yeah, okay, but half of them are non-financials, and this is like really new and really interesting that it is not what it used to be. So the scene has changed. And then, as an example of that, I can go to Tom. So Tom, we used to be colleague at Nordea, we used to be colleague at Tietoevry, and now you're in retail. And retail has really high ambition, manufacturing as well. So you will tell us something else than banking, because sometimes, we want to talk about something else than banking as well. And then adding to the diversity is that we are lucky to have you, Lukas, regional advocate. So tell us about how cloud is changing the game. I think you have lots of stories to share, and not only that, but I think you have a view on the roadmap. So that can be quite interesting to see what's coming, not just what is done, but what's coming.
I try to represent the shiny ball of future AI that John mentioned in the beginning.
So if we, and maybe just a word on myself, so I describe myself as a trainer because I actually did the training material, part of it for CDMC, so if you hate it, that's me. and then I was one of the original trainers, so I've done training for both DCAM and CDMC in Finland and abroad, private courses, public courses, and as a fun fact, I also recorded part of the e-learning. So if you buy or win e-learning today, you will have to listen a little bit more of me. So I'm happy after, when we go to lunch, to talk about training and how to, I think it's an important part of data management to spread the word and to really ramp up the knowledge. All right, but if we dive in, so I thought we would start with you, Juha. So your company is in a transformation to the cloud. And you have quite a lot of ambition on that. So if you can reflect on that and tell us how does it, how do you do data management differently, and what is your experience so far? And I was a bit fast. So you are the tribe lead for data and AI. So you are the core of this transformation.
Yeah, in a way, yes. So my background is with analytics. I'm a PhD in data mining. And nowadays I'm tribe lead for data platform and AI, so I kind of combine both sides of the thing. We are building or having a very ambitious program. We just kind of announced that a couple of months ago, that we are partnering with Microsoft and we are really pushing our whole infrastructure into the cloud. So obviously including data, and so it's a really ambitious program, and we are looking at benefiting a lot from having all that kind of scalability and robustness that the cloud brings to this. Now, of course, this also means that we have to take this data governance and data management more seriously. It is because not only because of these new regulations, but also with the scalability comes the danger of scalability. So suddenly we can explode the amount of data and the number of copies of the data. It's all around there and so forth. So it's something that we need to take very seriously when we start on this journey. Of course, as you mentioned, banks have already been doing this for a number of years. But I think it says a lot, which was mentioned previously, that the ECB has really thrown down the gauntlet on BCP 239. So although banks and financial institutions have been doing this quite a long time, the ECB is not too satisfied with the results so far. So it's a lot of work to do.
So a lot of regulatory pressure, and that's the reason you were leading the way for so many years, because the other industries were not having necessarily that much pressure to do that kind of things. And then we have regulation and we have framework. So turning back to you, Andrew, is that how does that relate and because now it goes beyond banking, beyond financial sector, and can you tell us about that?
You know, you're right to point out that our origins were with the finance industry going back to 2005, mainly with the major banks, obviously. But increasingly, we're finding corporates across a range of industries, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, autos, and I'll just give you a few names that we signed up in last year. Zeiss, you know, the ones who do the optical instruments, Heineken in Holland, and then we had Volvo Cars join us in November. Besides that, we've also had interest or membership from a number of regulators, including European Central Bank a year ago in September, and a couple of the what we'd say national central banks, Belgian and Austrian more recently, and we're talking to others. But I think the overwhelming view is that from the market, shall we say, is that we are cross-industry, and that the DCAM model, for example, or the cloud version are applicable across all sectors. And I think Eric has already mentioned quite a lot about the cloud and its usefulness. It's very much seen as an enabler for firms, organizations in all sectors. Yeah.
And now I need to be careful not to go too in detail, but there is a mapping actually done between the regulation and the framework. So they are not the same. They are clearly different things. The frameworks are capabilities and things that need to be in place, but the regulation is the things that are legally needed. So there is a mapping for that, and we could actually maybe not dive in now, but go further. So that is going towards, driven by regulation, but going beyond, and basically going.
I think business need is driving this a lot.
And that's actually a really good transition, because when I discussed with you, Thomas, to prepare, you said the business needs are the main things. So you used to be in banking as well. Yep. So how do you see that? You've seen both sides, the regulation-driven and the business-driven. And Kesko has a very ambitious digital application developments. And can you tell us, like, is it a different world or is it the same thing?
There are commonalities, of course. So I was in the banking side for 5 or so years in the customer data area, and there it's very much around obviously delivering the value of quality data, but a huge amount of regulatory pressures, and we had a legal entity change, we had IRB reporting, GDPR, BCBS 239. So there was an element of money behind these things coming based on the regulations. In the retail side, it's then much more on the bottom line. What is this actually going to deliver to us? It means that the data management side of things tends to be a bit more pragmatic. You're doing more tactical. John said it's not a bad word. So tactical solutions, what makes sense at the time, what you can sell at the time. So we then tend to do phased approaches in that side of things. But I think we're talking about the cloud, and you mentioned the digital development. So we obviously doing a lot of that recently. We have some legacy, but not the same banking legacy. And we're building out to the cloud. And we're building out because of the flexibility and simplicity that we have deploying new things into the cloud. But of course, we mentioned, you also mentioned the spread of the data, the explosion of data. There's the explosion of tools as well, because everyone likes to buy tools and new features come quickly and you deploy and deploy and deploy. It's a data management in terms of purely the data side, double-edged sword, and then also on the architecture side. And I think that's where it's very, very easy these days to get into that cloud mess of just buying new tools or subscribing to new tools and getting out there and just building this big mess landscape. And we've had some of that a little bit in the retail side, and like we have it in the banking side as well. It's sort of now on the Kesko side, we're turning around to look at what we have, look at that overall architecture, see what we can reuse, see what pieces actually fit together to make this cohesive platform.
And I'm glad you mentioned the cloud mess, because I didn't want to say that in front of Microsoft. So the cloud can be part of the problem almost, but it can definitely be part of the solution. And the framework, the CDMC, is explaining actually what it takes for the cloud to help and what needs to be in place beyond the standard and the fundamentals, I would say. And then, without being too nerdy, it's a bit like managing data from the cloud. It's not in the cloud, it's from the cloud. And there is a lot of tools that come that are maybe not superbly integrated yet, but they are there and they are going to change the scene. So can you tell us more, Lukas, about how all these tools that come together with the cloud will help?
Definitely. Explosion of data is kind of what's happening with cloud, with, I guess, limitless capacity for adding data there. And we could start with a question that how many here trust your end business users to label data? Okay, not very many. So we need tools, we need automation, we need AI to do this kind of grunt work. It makes things a lot easier for everyone. And Microsoft is not only CDMC certified, but we also have tools that cover each of the 14 pillars in the CDMC, making all of those things easier. I represent maybe the AI side more at Microsoft, so zooming in on one of those areas, which is like labeling and classification, their AI is not just the future, it's already here. So it's already possible to use AI to, let's say, classify sensitive data, map the entire data estate, and really see where those things are. But looking a bit further, I think AI is going to have an impact on kind of the entire data lifecycle a lot more. There will be new ways to access data. Graph was mentioned here earlier. How many here, or probably a lot here, are looking forward to co-pilots helping us all at work? Behind those co-pilots, there's Microsoft Graph, a huge graph engine. And we actually noticed there in the early preview that the AI has the same access rights as each user, meaning that AI can access pretty much everything on, let's say, SharePoint or anywhere, which can cause kind of issues if you haven't labeled that data and put that access control in order. And then just one additional, there are also new forms of data emerging now with generative AI. Let's say you want to add your own data, build like your own AI bot, something like that. Then you need to create what are called embeddings that are in a vector database. And when you create an embedding, put it in a vector database, you can't turn it back into its original format. So you need that data control in place before you start creating those vector databases and so forth. But yeah, the tools basically are already here, kind of for all of those 14 pillars. So we should be getting that in order now, because otherwise we will be kind of in trouble in a couple of years with all of these new things emerging.
Yeah, and at least on my perspective, very often I hear like we need to have good data before we can use AI. And the refreshing thing that we discussed is that what you said to me is that we need AI because we don't have good data. And I was like, hey, hold on. So AI is actually literally part of the solution and could be actually helping improve the data quality and make metadata usable.
Yeah, definitely. We're already seeing customers implementing all this new generative AI in systems that have kind of lacking data, let's say product data coming from a factory. It's not very human readable. So at some point you might want to put that product on a website somewhere. That could definitely be a use case for generative AI, generating new descriptions, and also finding that, let's say, lacking or sensitive data. Also, it's kind of like having an almost infinite resource of interns looking through all of your data.
Yeah, I didn't like the word infinite, but you keep
Almost.
using it. So the interesting thing is that the advanced capabilities can help us with the basics, but in theory, at least, the basics needs to be first, and maybe we can improve still with AI. Can you tell us, Juha, about the basics? Because we've done assessment on not the CDMC but the DCAM. Can you tell us the OP perspective on that? How was it and how you feel about it?
Yeah, we did the DCAM evaluation or assessment at OP 2 years ago, 2021. And we are doing it again this year. So we are kind of getting a new evaluation where we are now and so forth. I think the point with that kind of first exercise was that we kind of used that as a kind of to provide the base value of where we are, and therefore we could argument better to the boardroom and so on to get budget on improving things, because certain things were deemed to be a little bit lacking. So it was a very good exercise for us to be able to, put some muscle behind our arguments that we actually need to invest on this.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies now. So hopefully we can with the new evaluation, we can now show that we have actually made some progress. We are not still there yet, but it's important to show the progress and so forth.
And maybe to rephrase a bit what you said, because this is super interesting, because when you work with data, you need to have what we discussed, like the Americans, they call it a program, which is a permanent thing. So in Europe, we tend to have a program, a bunch of temporary projects. So there is a few different words that we need to be careful with. But essentially, what is difficult is to explain that, you haven't solved the problem and you still need to spend money on it. So what it means is that it's important to show progress, because otherwise the leadership might think like, okay, you're burning a lot of money, where are the results? And reassessment, I'm thrilled by this, because then it will give you factual third-party evidence, not just to the banking authority and all kind of interesting players, but even inside the company. Where is it that you progressed? Which are the individual capabilities, sub-capability that are better now than they were 2 years ago? I'm sure there are plenty. And then this is evidence that you're spending your money the right way. And maybe that is also evidence of where you should focus going forward. If some aspects are not progressing, I think it could be a good thing to actually factually assess that they are not progressing.
Yeah, well, I would still kind of emphasize, because we are talking about regulation a lot, and kind of basic motivation or the base motivation for doing this, as it comes from the regulatory perspective, that we need to do this or we are in trouble. But that's not a very good motivator for the common employee. So we need to find the way to show the ROI there. So, and I think that's where we are heading with our data democratization, citizen data science, all of those programs that we have in place and so forth. So we are trying to create this data culture at OP, where the importance would be realized by all people. Now, how to turn that into actual money that you can show to the board and so forth, that's a very good question. But I think it's about the cultural change, because what I can see qualitatively is that when people get their hands on the data, on good quality data and tools to use it and so forth, it's kind of oil to the engine.
Yeah, so there is a debate like data is the new oil, and in many ways it's not, but what you mean, it's a lubricant. Yeah. So that's like, actually it's not oil, but it's a lubricant. So having good quality makes everything easier.
Easier, smoother, I mean, everything flows much better.
Yes, and I think that's true cross-industry. But back to the regulation, we discussed about, we're supposed to talk about AI. Can you open up about the AI regulation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're hearing a lot about AI Act and also initiatives in the US and UK. UK is being particularly sort of, I wouldn't say restrictive, maybe defensive is the word on AI, or the UK government, should we say. But it's worth pointing out that in our frameworks, AI is present in all the capabilities. So it's not like we're ignoring AI and therefore regulation. And in saying this, people have to take account of regulation, I think. And it's worth mentioning here that the ECB, for example, is very much examining banks' ability to manage data in the cloud, which would obviously involve looking at AI as well, I believe. Maybe you don't agree.
No, I fully agree, but I just wanted to mention that one thing that the coming AI Act is bringing along here is requirements for new requirements to corporations and business side to actually do something that they haven't actually done before, and meaning what Lukas actually referred to is before you have the vectorized data embeddings and so forth, you have the original data, and what we need to control and manage is the training data that was used to train those AI models and so forth. I mean, look at the trouble that OpenAI is at the moment with respect to, okay, where did you get this data? Did you get it, in the right way? And there's legal stuff going on.
Yeah, I think the AI Act has kind of tiers also, so something on the vendors, but then there's also huge responsibility for everyone that's applying it in our own organizations. And that's where we're trying to help. We also have a responsible AI framework, kind of taking things to take into consideration when implementing these services. Sorry, Brian.
I was going to say, just to say that AI does require good data, and obviously, I think you've said this before as well, Thomas. Basically, good quality data, and you need to manage both AI and the data. Obviously, you can have good data going into AI with getting weird results, as well as having good results. So you had to bear that in mind as well. Not meaning to put the kibosh on AI, but it is a programming tool and it does need to be managed carefully. Yeah.
All right, we started 5 minutes late, so now we're about all time. If I wrap up, I would say that we discussed that there is actually very different approach in different industry, but in the end of the day, I think there is more commonality than differences. So I think we still have 5 minutes to open up.
You have 5.
Yeah, so we can wrap up. Actually, I can ask you to wrap up. So I think, Lukas, did you want to have technology with save of the day, right?
From a technology perspective, there's a lot that's already possible. There's so much that's already possible that's not being utilized that can make kind of that core data things like, classification and labeling and knowing your data estate. That's already possible. Tools are there. And my eyes are already on kind of next phase of that. What are the new types of data that's coming in? Data democratization is also one thing, because all of these coming co-pilots, assistive AI is going to make accessing or actually using that data so much easier for each and every one. You don't need to know SQL or how to build dashboards. You can just ask it with natural language. And that, on the other end, we have the data. And wrapping it back, if that data is bad, and who was it that said that good analytics on bad data is not good? So that's kind of, that we need to get ready, because AI is going to be here.
And Microsoft promised us unlimited amount of trainees.
Almost.
Almost.